So, I think I've got the best Warlock build this season for any level of content, from solo ops all the way up to GM alerts, raids, and especially for 4 feet and 5 feet dungeon farms. And look, I know I already said this exact same thing at the start of Renegades when I made the Winter's Guile build, but so help me, I never expected to find something that could one-shot the glorious behemoths in a 5 feet dungeon, while also keeping me perfectly protected in the exact same content. Everyone's already seen the handheld supernova boss chunking, and if you haven't, then, well, surprise I guess. But I found getting in close and staying alive while doing hard content was sometimes just too difficult, because you'd get absolutely blasted, or some boss would just stomp you doing 90% of your HP, and then it'll burn you with some fire attack that does the last 10%. But with this setup, nothing can touch us. It absolutely trivializes hard content. It's so easy to do the boss chunking safely now that you can run this in any piece of content you want, and thanks to Controverse Hold, we basically have infinite uptime on our grenades. And I'm dubbing the build Absolutely Busted Handheld Supernova plus Glaive, or ABHSNPG for short. I'm not doing that, but I just thought that was funny. So as always, remember to leave a like if you give it a try for yourself, and now let's get into it. The basis of this build comes from being able to throw out handheld supernova. So we have to run the Aspect Chaos Accelerant with Magnetic Grenade. You can run one of the other grenades, such as Suppressor, Spike, or Void Wall, but Magnetic Grenades have the shortest cooldown out of all of the available options, so they're the best for grenade spam. And since it's going to be super easy to get ability kills thanks to how powerful handheld supernova is, the aspect that fits into the build the best is Feed the Void for Devour. It will give us Devour on any ability kills, which will heal us, and because we're running the aspect itself, kills will give us grenade energy, and that's any kills. Child of the Old Gods is actually a really bad idea to run in this build, because of how debuffs and the health bar chunking actually work. Now, I'm not going to go over an entire breakdown of how chunking works, because I think Aegis did a massive deep dive into how the chunking actually works, and all you need to know for this build is that Controverse Hold plus Undermining gave the best results for chunking. If any other debuffs get applied, then the chunking immediately gets worse. So don't change up the weapons or aspects to run other debuffs like Wither and Gaze, or if you're doing raids and your team plans to run a Tractor or Tether, convince them not to. So with that said, the first fragment we're gonna lock in is Echo of Undermining. It's supposed to be a 15% debuff when dealing damage with any Void Grenade, but when running Controverse Hold, under normal conditions this would be a completely wasted fragment. It applies a debuff which does not stack with the debuff from Controverse Holds. But for some reason, it's significantly helping with the boss chunking, so we've got to make it part of the build. It doesn't really do anything else aside from giving us weird extra damage, but we need it to get the best results. Now, apart from Echo of Undermining, nothing else is required for damage, so everything else is about making the neutral game stronger. Echo of Expulsion causes ability final blows to trigger a Void Explosion. This will allow any of your ability kills to do additional ad clear, which works exceptionally well in ad dense content. Next is Echo of Persistence, which increases the duration of void buffs. This is roughly a 50% increase in duration for all void buffs, including Devour, bringing it to about 15 seconds, which makes it way easier to use in some content where the ad density isn't as packed. And then finally, we have Echo of Obscurity, finishers grant invisibility. I personally rate this fragment, especially when paired with Echo of Persistence. I think it's fantastic in endgame under-leveled content like GM alerts or ultimate conquests, because any finisher will grant you invisibility, making special finishes or just regular finisher chaining way safer. Now moving on to our loadout, I actually have 2 really strong loadouts to pair with this build depending on how hard the content you're playing is. For content where you are significantly underleveled and still need to get in really close, then our main exotic is going to be the exotic Glaive, Edge of Action. The protection and the overshield gained from this bubble is insanely powerful, to the point where you can just drop it on top of a boss that was one-shotting you and just emote if you want. For those not familiar with it, this is the Titan Exotic Glaive from the Witch Queen DLC, which allows any class to effectively drop a small Ward of Dawn on demand. Like any of the exotic glaives, you need to build a small progress bar through projectile hits or melee hits and then perform a special reload. Now, your next projectile will drop a Ward of Dawn on the ground. The best part about this exotic is that all you need are hits to build up the charge, not kills, allowing it to scale really well into hard content because the enemy difficulty doesn't change its use. In fact, I'd say it's easier to use in hard content because one ad can provide more charge because they're tankier. Now, your kinetic slot weapon doesn't really matter in this build. We're not going to use it much, so pick something that handles champions or just run mint if you don't care. Honestly, with practice, handheld supernova chunking can pretty consistently one-shot everything in the game. It can one-shot barriers and overloads and even unstops, or at least put them within finisher range, so it doesn't really matter whether you run an anti-champion weapon or not. The only champ that needs to be dealt with is the unstoppables because they have extra resistance unless they're stunned. Now moving on to our heavy weapon, if you're planning to use this in a raid, then 86 with the Braytech Origin trait is amazing for that extra bit of grenade energy for ability spam against bosses. There have already been some crazy solo raid and speedrun videos where players use 86 as the heavy weapon. This is mainly due to Controverse not giving back a full grenade on a hit. It's about 80 or 90%, but when paired with 86, you can get a full grenade charge back, allowing for infinite ability spam. But if you're not doing a raid, then you can pick something to deal with champions. Submersion is usually my go-to with Chill Clip because it lets you cover 2 types of champions, and with the seasonal mod, it gives you full coverage. Now, I did mention that there are 2 possible loadouts for this build, and the second is for easier at-level content where you don't need the massive overshield from Ward of Dawn. In this situation, take Edge of Action off and use Praxic Blade instead. It provides more mobility than the exotic glaive at the cost of defense, since you can use the deflect to get in close if needed, and you're not locked into the same spot with a Titan bubble because as you deflect you can move around. The Thrown Titan Sword is also amazing for ad clear, especially against enemies that are a little bit spread out. The other loadout suggestions for your energy and your heavy are exactly the same as if you were running Edge of Action. Just run Sire Turner in the energy slot and then 86 for ability regen. Now, as I've mentioned a couple of times now, the exotic for this build is Controverse Holds, and it's absolutely mandatory for this build. Because of how the boss health bar chunking works, it's not the best option, it's the only option. The staple of Controverse Holds is that dealing damage with a charged grenade will provide ability regen and applies a weakening effect, making it an all-round powerhouse of an exotic already. As for the rest of our armor and stats, we need to get as close to 200 grenade as possible, and it's gonna be annoying to get this without font mods. Since we are running Echo of Undermining, we effectively need to have a 220 grenade stat. It is possible to get this with 5 pieces of Grenadier armor, and the legendary pieces being tier 5 with a focus in grenade, but that's a very specific grind if you haven't already got this. So I would suggest just getting your grenade stat as high as you can and replacing the armor in the future when you get something better. As for armor set bonuses, it would be ideal for you to have the 2-piece set bonus for Sage Protector and Pharaoh Potent. Sage Protector is another way to get grenade energy via sword hits, and this armor set comes from the dungeon. While Pharaoh Potent gives damage resist when your shield starts to regen, and comes from Fireteam Ops and Solo Ops. For your armor mods, if you're aiming for 200 grenade stat, you'll have to run grenade mods in every armor piece. For the remaining mods, on your helmet, run 2 Ashes to Ashes so that you can generate more super energy from the insane grenade spam that you're already able to do. On your gauntlet, run 2 Fire Powers and a Fastball to generate orbs as often as possible. On your chest piece, just run Resists. On your boots, run Stacks on Stacks and a Scavenger mod for your heavy weapon, and then Recuperation in the final slot. And finally, on your class item, run Special Finisher, Proximity Ward, and Bombardier. This whole setup leans into the grenade spam to generate orbs and super energy, and with those orbs, you can occasionally make special ammo to keep your special weapons topped up. But neither the Praxic Blade or Edge of Action really need that much ammo anyway, this is just a nice to have. Now I've got some tips for each loadout for you. Tip number 1 is if you're running Edge of Action, focus on getting the shield charge ASAP. Once you special reload, you can swap weapons and the Titan bubble will stay active, meaning you can store this as a get out of jail free card in your back pocket and use it whenever you need. I strongly suggest whenever you activate the bubble, try to get your next charge going before doing anything else. If you accidentally destroy your own Titan bubble, which is very easy to do with handheld Supernova, it will be very tough to safely get the next bubble. Tip number 2, when using the glaive, don't forget, it's a glaive. You have a block button which reduces a lot of damage. Tip number 3, don't put the Titan bubble right underneath the boss. Put it close, but not at its feet. If you're too close, not only can the boss be in your bubble, but when you use handheld supernova, you'll probably destroy it. Tip number 4, if you destroy your Titan bubble by accident, it will still give you an overshield when standing where the bubble used to be. Enemies can now shoot you, but you will still be able to gain that massive overshield. Tip number 5, whenever you're using the Praxic Blade, it can apply Weaken if you're running a specific weapon core, so remove this if you want to avoid nerfing yourself. Tip number 6, as you throw the Praxic Blade, you can start charging the handheld supernova, which skips the catching animation and lets you play way more aggressively because you can actively do something while the sword is tracking to different enemies, which typically you would just have to stand there for. Tip number 7, remember you have a regular grenade. You don't have to use handheld supernova every single time. If you need an ability kill at range, throw that grenade to trigger Devour. And that's all I've got for you. Seriously though, you have to give Edge of Action a try with this build. Once I started using the bubble, it was a game changer in content where I just wasn't able to get close enough. If you've got any tweaks yourself or have build ideas of your own, please let me know in the comments. I read all of them, so I'll definitely see it. As a reminder as well, we now have a Discord server for the channel, so feel free to come and join if you want. Link is in the description. You can get me to try your own Destiny builds or just come and hang out in VC. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one, and have a wonderful rest of your day.